the guy who began his career at a local grocery store, and now, after 4 years, he's the boss of his own company, from big names like the New York Stock Exchange to Launchables, Forbes, and more. His agency serves a wide range of clients. During his time at his second job, something clicked for him. Find out how Cayce Williams shifted from working at an agency to creating his own products, and how he managed to get 150 people on board without spending a dime on marketing.
So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I would really like to start with an introduction of yourself. How did you get started and what is your journey like? And it was really nice to hear about the story of your recent product. So if you can really take us through that bit and your journey and what motivated you to kind of go about building that product, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a dark story, and I have a really long story of how to go in, of how I came from, working at Kroger, working at a grocery store, up until creating my own products. And it basically started because I was working at a startup. Well, first I was working at the grocery store, and I just felt that I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my life putting stuff into bags and putting carts in the store, and people are yelling at me for not knowing where the butter is, and I know I needed a change. So that's where it started, and that's kind of what, a lot of events that were negative in my life, negative experiences with people and with jobs, has pushed me. There's been positive things too, but a lot of negative things have pushed me outside of my comfort zone to be able to build my own products and my own services today.
Sure, I think I have had those experiences as well, where not so much like this, but more of being in a corporate and sitting on that desk and not being able to if I've done my job, can I really just go home because I've done it? So that kind of experience, and just not being in your own headspace to do creative stuff. But what I feel about it, it's more like when you go through these tough times, that actually defines what you do not like doing, and that paves the way to what you actually want to do. So what was that journey for you? How did you navigate to that? And after that, what exactly happened?
Yeah. So it comes down to one key moment in my second job. I worked at a startup where they did a platform for the home service industry. And I was an Android programmer at the time. And I was also doing their design for the mobile app because they didn't have enough people. So you know how startups go. Sometimes you do one role and then you do another. And, around that time that I started doing the design, they hired in a manager. And this manager would always tell me how to make the design. And he just said how he wanted it to be based on no facts, no evidence, no user testing, nothing. And I was actually going out and testing users and talking to people and showing them the application. And I thought, this is all wrong. This is all terrible. None of this makes sense. And, so I was making these adjustments, and one day he comes up to me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I tell him, "Okay, here's what we're going to do with the app." And I give him a 20-minute explanation about, we're going to do this, because XYZ and the investor and this user test, ABCD. Yeah, I was really passionate about it. And he just looks at me and he says, "No, but we should do it this other way, which is completely different." And I'm like, "Well, what's your logic? What's your facts?" He's like, "There is none. I'm your manager, so you just do it that way." And I lost it. I got really upset, at that. And, after that, about a week or two later, I quit, because I realized that, these guys weren't interested in what's doing right, for their customers. And so that's what started to lead me down the path, that I am now.
Yeah, that makes incredible sense. If you're not doing user interviews prior, and even while you're making the app or software, to some extent, that doesn't even make sense. And if you're coming up with a hypothesis or I don't know, a flow or something, it should be really backed up with data or some kind of stats is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that makes incredible sense. And what after that? So from there, you actually went about making your own agency, or what was that journey like?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story too. Where after that, I quit and I became a freelancer, and it was incredibly hard, incredibly stressful. Just thinking, well, if this company isn't going to do things the right way, then I'm going to do my things. I'm going to do them my way, and that's it. I had a lot to learn in that moment that I do now, but it's really cool to go through that transformation period. And so eventually I got some contracts with some startups. So I worked with, a couple other startups, and I was more in the role now of doing the UI, the user experience, the designs, the user testing, and more in the management role. Because I realized that, that's the position that I more want to be in. I don't necessarily want to be the person that just codes. So that's what I do now, is more consulting, and I'll set up websites and that sort of thing. Everything digital marketing I've gotten into. And along the way, it's just weird. It's just things happen. And, I had people just reach out to me and they're like, Cayce, I really like what you're doing. Can I work on your team with you? So the entire team that I have today are people that just asked me if they could join my team. And I figured out a way to make it work. So it's been going for almost 4 years now. And we have a team of 6 people. We just do design and mostly social and web stuff now. So it's really cool that it came from me just working, and then up until now where it's like we're just doing some really cool projects. Like we're working with people from Launchables, the New York Stock Exchange. I work with people from Ford, IBM, the New York Giants, a lot of really, really cool people from cool businesses, very successful businesses. So, it just happened to be that point. And now I'm at the next level, which is where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is an amazing journey. I think a lot of transitions in the right direction. And you recently, when we met for the first time, you mentioned the product that you created. So how did you come up with the idea, and what went into making it, and like the initial interviews, etc., as you were talking a lot about the feedback?
So basically, the product that I have today, I realized that I don't want to develop anymore for other companies. I don't want to be, if I'm busy doing the management and the day-to-day operations of the company, right now I'm like, okay, I think that I want to take everything that I've learned and everything that I did for other companies to set up their projects and their applications to make them successful. Why don't I take that and put it into my own idea and work with my team to create it, right? And so I felt that if it was for my own project, I wouldn't have a problem developing it. I actually quite enjoy it if it's my own project. So that's basically the transition that I made very close to now. And that's the transition that I'm in, is more focusing on still running the agency and what we do, but also building these products that I'm passionate about and things that I want to create that I feel actually have, a use in the world. So being as an agency owner, I've had a lot of contacts with other web developers and people in the website space. And I talked with a few people in my network, and I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I said, hey, do you ever, when you finish a website or before you start a new website, do you actually take pictures of the website in order to show your client or put it to your portfolio? And they say, yeah, every time. That's what I do. And me too, I would do that. So I just finished the the Detroit Auto Show, which is where I'm based, that website. That website had over 100 pages. And I went through each one and took a screenshot and moved to the next one, took a screenshot, moved to the next one, took a screenshot. And it took forever. I mean, the tools are great that you can take an individual screenshot of each one. But it takes a really long time if there's a lot of pages that you've done. So, I think it took me like 3 hours to take a screenshot of the whole website. And I was like, I was just sitting there thinking the whole time, right? Whenever you have like a task that you just keep on like doing and doing and doing and doing, that's where the ideas come up, and you're just like, I wish there was a better way to do this. And that's how it's born. So basically I created a screenshot tool where you can put in a website and it does all of the screenshots of the entire website for you in 20 minutes. And you don't have to do anything. You just have to submit it. And it's a free tool.
That's kind of amazing. So you started your journey for this product from like actually going about your network, doing these interviews to figure out whether it's a good idea or not. And then eventually you went about creating the product.
Yes.
Just in SaaS, for SaaS in general, how it is more about the product market fit once you have that first version of the product. So how do you think one can define that, find that, and like go from there?
Yeah. So my biggest thing was there any tools out there? I had to answer 2 questions. Was there any tools that actually did what I described? Right. And then number 2, who actually wants to use this and would they want to use this? Right. So everyone in my network, they like me, but they would tell me if they didn't like the idea. I asked them about it. I said, hey, what if you had a tool that did this, right? I don't have a crazy big network. I don't have a crazy big marketing budget or anything to try and like run this, but I was pretty confident that if I could answer those 2 questions with the people I have and the resources I have, that it's worth actually creating a prototype. It's worth actually creating a MVP for the product. So I asked everyone in my network and they said, yes, that's the tool I want. I went to Google, right, to figure out, hey, is there another product out here that's actually doing this already? And I looked at a bunch of different products. I looked at them and they were complicated. You had to pay for it, right? It was only one screen at a time. There were so many settings. It looked outdated. And I was like, there's nothing out here that's doing it, right? And so around the time that we met, I actually posted to Reddit and I asked a question like any rogue marketer on Reddit would. I said, hey, how do you take a screenshot of your website? I just posted that as a question. And sure enough, like a lot of people came in and answered, oh, I use this extension, use that extension. And I followed up with all the ones that I didn't know. And I said, hey, does it actually take a screenshot of every single page? And the answer was no, for every single tool. There was one, however, that is a GitHub repository, that is a Ruby program that does that. But the hurdle to entry for that is quite high if you're not, don't want to set up Ruby and don't want to git clone and all this stuff and run it on your computer, right? So there is one solution out there, but it doesn't compare to what I've set up at the moment.
Sure. And how did that go? From the initial user interviews to actually a lot of people trying the product.
So basically I sent it out to my network initially, and I said, here's my product, try it out. And the first time that I sent it out, just to like my internal group, like not to a bunch of people, I just sent it out to them, and they all came back and they said, it's crashed, it didn't work. It's like, I realized that like literally the way that I had written it, there was no protection against multiple people using it. So I had to fix that. So that was the first thing. And then I released it again with a bunch of improvements to fix that. And they all tried it and it all worked beautifully for them. They all loved it. And they, a lot of people in there, and that's when I sent it out to a little bit of a bigger group. A lot of people in there were just sharing it organically with other people. And I started getting people that I didn't know trying it out. And so every person that would try it out, and if they put in their email, I would actually send them an email personally. And I would say, hey, I saw that you took these screenshots, and I have it in my terms that I can contact people. Okay. So I said, hey, I saw that you took these screenshots. What did you think of the tool? So I got feedback that way. And what I found out is it's not really good for copywriters. It's not really good for designers, but it is really, really good for maybe the occasional business owner. But more often than not, it's going to be for web developers that just want to back up and share their work really easily. And also for SEO people too. So that's kind of how I iterated. And now with that, I also got a lot of feature requests for it. So finding out actually what people would really like to see in it, which was really cool.
Yeah, I think when you're developing the product and you can really figure out a feedback loop, that massively helps. And for you, it kind of happened naturally rather than just like going about creating a dam for yourself. So what was that moment when you figured out that, okay, I have a product market fit and now I'll just go keep building around the same, or just keep adding features or enhance the product in general?
Yeah. So the funny thing about my product is it doesn't really have any sort of monetization scheme. I just lose $100 a month hosting this and letting people take screenshots of whatever they want. So that's cool. So definitely one of the things on my mind is how can I at least cover the hosting costs, right?
Yeah.
And so with a lot of the features that get submitted, one of the most common ones that I saw was people wanted a feature where you could specify a little bit more settings of the tool. It was built to be super simple, but there are some settings that people overall requested all the same. And one of those was, hey, maybe I want to include a specific path of the website. So if you have a blog, you're like, oh, I just want to take screenshots of the entire blog. So just do that. Or maybe you're taking screenshots of the website and your website is 10 pages, but your blog is 4,000 pages and you want to exclude the blog. You don't want to include that because that's just so much. And it's not really helpful sometimes to take screenshots of the whole thing. So my thought was, if I offer advanced settings on there, there's going to be settings that you can use, but there's also going to be settings that are going to be a paid feature, is my thought right now. So anyone that's going, and the way that I look at that as, user perspective, a power user is someone that's going to be more likely to pay for your product. So if they understand it and they go in there and they start doing the settings and all of that stuff, and they really want to try different things, that's someone that's more likely to be like, yeah, I find the value in it. This is how I want to use it, right? So that's kind of my path to monetization. I haven't made any progress towards that yet. I'm just kind of letting it sit out there for right now.
Yeah, I think once you find your product market fit, which I think there is, and that's the point where you can really go about monetizing the product. So, because you come from that design and development kind of background, the title of this podcast is like "Shut the fuck up and take my money." So, what I try to establish there is what does it take to actually build a product that the end user, when they're viewing the product, they just stop you in middle and they're just like, we are too convinced. You just take our money and we'll use it.
Yeah. So this product was built to be one of those things that is, like an SEO tool, one that's linked on a bunch of different places, and then it just gains popularity over time, right? So with a little bit of marketing, a little bit of outreach, this tool will be in places that it needs to be after some time, hoping. And then people will start using it, right? So the first thing that I want to see is I want to see people using the tool basically all the time. I want to see people just like submitting screenshots, getting results. I know that's the first goal. So if I show that people are coming back, people are using it frequently, people are sharing it, then it's a tool that people really, really want, that really confirms the product market fit for me. And the next part on that is then offering those monetization options, because I'm going to get even more people reaching out to me and asking me, hey, what about this? What about that? Right? So that's kind of my first goal, is to share it with as many people as I can and see if we can get some recurring users. And right now, even though I've only shared it with probably only 10 people, close to 150 screenshots have run on it right now. So 150 basically different people have tried different screenshots. So it's really cool to see that, hey, I've only shared it with like a small amount of people, yet, there's a lot of screenshots that have happened.
Yeah, I think that shows virality. Once it starts growing, it will just keep growing based on like word of mouth and things like that. Now that we're talking about virality, etc., I would just love to understand. I mean, I know you have not figured that out yet because you are not going into market like full on right now. But what do you think? What channels does work for SaaS in general, or how can one go about testing a couple of them and take a decision on which direction to take? Because there are so many, and of course, you only have those 24 hours. How should one go about it?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. Again, it comes down to who is your target market, who is actually going to use this. And for me, it's web developers. So where are web developers, right? You got to ask that question. And then maybe there's a few different places, like, well, they're on Google, okay, well, they're on Reddit, they're on X, and so what I would do is I would actually test those three, and I would go out and I would just try different things with those platforms and try outreaching people, try posting valuable stuff. I mean, it's a tool that's valuable, right? It's a free tool. So there's nothing wrong with me a lot of times just trying to share it for someone to help someone out, right? So initially, that's kind of what I would do, is I would try to put it out there to people and say, hey, here's this tool, and just collect some feedback and that sort of thing. And when I've established it at this point, right, I don't know, but when I've established, hey, this is the particular channel that I really, really like, and I think a lot of people will get some value out of this tool that I created, I'm just going to go all into that channel and start there. Because what I've learned from my agency is, I'm mainly referral based in my agency, but we're starting to do some outbound marketing. And with that, you have to pick one, because I don't have an infinite marketing budget. So it's like, if I pick one channel and really, really focus on that, that's where the results are going to be.
Yeah, I think that is what one needs to decide when they are starting off, because there are so many channels and you can just get deviated into multiple channels and not get results at all. So I think what you're talking about and what I hear a lot is more of like founder-led marketing, on like figuring out the channels first and then doing a founder-led kind of marketing using those channels. What do you feel about that in general? Because I have also seen that now on LinkedIn specifically, I massively am online and like always scrolling on LinkedIn. So I've seen like the company pages are not growing so much, but it's more of like founders sharing their story, product updates, what they're thinking, what they're building towards, their challenges and things like that. That is actually getting traction and eventually, I guess, acquisition as well.
Yeah. So that's what I plan to do, is have more of that authentic content and me just sharing my story of what I do. And I had a really, really big struggle with that 2 years ago, because I knew that hey, I have to get out there. I have to talk with people. I have to, share my product. Like, if I'm not willing to do any of that, then how am I supposed to get this in front of someone, to use it, right? So I think that there's this shift recently that's going from, Mr. Beast style videos and content to more of like, just laid back, very casual, very storytelling, authentic, founder-led marketing, where, I think Mark Zuckerberg is doing a lot of that recently, where people were accusing of being hit like a lizard man. And now, like, because he's doing more of that style, people have gotten more like, oh, he's actually a normal person. He's not just this giant, scary corporation guy, right? And I really like that that feeling, because I'm a very genuine person. I'm not like a fake person, and that's what I want to show people. So when it came to seeing all the stuff online, I was like, that's not me. Like, I can't be like that. I don't want to be like that. So now that it's shifting towards that, and you see people like Mr. Beast even admitting that hey, it's shifting towards this, I think that's where we need to be. Is we just need to be ourselves. We need to be authentic. We mess up. We say we say like, when we're talking and whatever. It doesn't have to be super perfect. People want to see your story and what you're going through, because I feel like that helps them live what they're trying to live on and the path that they want to follow, seeing someone else go down one.
Yeah, I think authentic is really the best. I recently also came across this post, I think, from Crip's founder, who was talking about being like on a stage and just like getting down and not being able to speak. And later on, after he built his startup, now he was at some college and where he had to deliver, and he prepared all of his speech and like really mugged that up real nice, and eventually forgot like when he was on stage. And that's when he started going about just talking, just like two of us chatting here. And he got a really, really nice traction from the audience. Those were like college folks. Of course, why not? So I think it's more of like us taking our guards off and really being authentic and sharing the journey and what matters to us and why we are doing what we're doing. And that actually establishes a human connect with the end user. And they buy from a person rather than a company, because they are feeling connected to that. On that note, what I think is like a lot of people really start with an idea, sometimes build an MVP and reach a couple of million. But what does it take to really make a product that can sustain over a very, very long time?
Yeah. Good question. I think that it comes down to, and this is something that I've been learning in my agency. I've been running it for close to 4 years. And I have a few clients that have been with me for 4 years at this point. And it's thanks to them that I've been able to get this far in terms of the work that I do. I think a lot of times people forget that when you interface with a company or when you work with an agency, at the end of the day, you're just working with certain people and a certain culture. That's what you're dealing with. And I think that, what this has shown me is that you got to have the right people, you got to have the right culture, and you have to have what's called user retention or client retention in order to actually have a product that is for the long term. If you put a product out there and, it's like, okay, here's my product, great, it does X, and then it's killed by the next update in Unreal Engine or Adobe Photoshop or Adobe After Effects, and then your whole product's gone and all your users leave, then it's like your churn rate is too high, and then you don't have anything, right? So I think that you need to build. If you're not just building it to sell it, you need to really obsess about the user experience and really think about how are people going to interact with my product, and what's going to make them want to stay and continue to get value out of this product. So I think that's the huge thing about building for the long term.
Yeah, I think that makes incredible sense. While you were talking about it, I just came across this thought. I mean, third-party integrations. So there is a fine difference between a product like yours, which is not dependent on a third-party tool, because it's not integrating with something and so on and so forth. Wherein if I talk of a couple of tools, there are these integrations where they bring the data from, and that's when their product actually starts making sense or brings value to the users.
Right.
Then that also comes with an added vulnerability of them like actually launching their own next feature or something like that, and that company completely going out of business. So do you think there is a fine line there while someone is just starting off? How do they go about choosing it, whether they should prefer something that is dependent on a third party, or is that not something that they should think about when they're just starting with an idea?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, if you're just talking about it in terms of, I have this core functionality of my product and it depends on ChatGPT or whatever, right? Like that's the LLM I use for my system, right? If it's something like that, where your core functionality is dependent on another company, then yes, that to me is a little sketchy, a little scary. But at the same time, any modern application, unless you've taken years and are like some god at programming and wrote the whole thing yourself, you're going to be dependent on some sort of third party, whether you like it or not. So for example, in my application, yeah, I wrote the parts myself. There's nothing about it that depends on another company entirely, but it is written in Node, which uses libraries and packages that are written by other people in other places. And I think a lot of times people think that, just because you write this code and it does this thing, doesn't mean that it's completely yours or completely, hey, this is 100% never going to change. Packages update. Things need to update your operating system. It's a living, breathing thing. So no matter what software you create, it doesn't matter. It's going to be dependent on some other company or some other person in some way. That's always the case nowadays, otherwise what I stated. But yeah, I think it's just the reality. Well, what was the question actually? Is I went on that tangent, but I forget what the actual question was.
You got it right. The question was somewhat similar. So we can take an example of like an influencer marketing platform, let's say, or a social media management platform. So what the way these work is like they have to first integrate with all of these social media platforms to then provide some kind of unified communication and solving some sort of issue of scheduling posts from one places, having like generating posts from one place and things like that. So I was talking about that kind of integration and the dependency on third party. But I think this does make incredible sense as well. What I think you're leaning towards is it's more like actually focus on solving the problem statement rather than thinking about the integration that you're trying to get into. Because later on you can still like pivot or iterate and still solve the same problem for the user that you have.
Yeah, you want to minimize your dependence on other companies, because when they go through something traumatic, you will also go through something traumatic. For example, I use a tool that does like LinkedIn outreach, and anytime LinkedIn changes, they have to update their stuff. And if LinkedIn just one day decides, I'm gonna stop giving you guys data and whatnot, then their whole business is over in one day. It's gone. Yeah. There's nothing they can do. And then we also look at, for example, content creators who have businesses, in platforms like TikTok, right? If you've seen the news about TikTok and the United States, potentially in 9 months, if they don't figure it out, TikTok's going to be going away. You can't what are you supposed to do about that? Your whole business is dependent on this one platform, essentially. So I think that if you're going to be dependent on some sort of platform, that you have two choices. One, write that piece of function that does yourself, right? Or find a more localized alternative like a library or a package. Or number two, if you can't do that, then you need to diversify. You need to say, okay, well, I'm not just on TikTok, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and etc. You need to have fallbacks set in place and contingency plans for like, okay, if this stops working, what do I do? How do I pivot? Because, pivoting when you have a company that is quite large, I mean, I have 6 people on my team, pivoting feels like a really big movement at this point. But if you're a company of like 100, 200, 100,000 people, pivoting at that point is like, it's really hard to do. So you need to put those in place before that happens, and think about that before that happens. And that to me is all part of the design and the strategy about how to put things together.
Yeah, that makes incredible sense. And I think a fair point there is like for people like that, a lot of people are considering like building it, scaling it towards some extent, and then having a valuation of some point and then selling it all over. Just trying to get into the business, make money out of it and get out of it because they know at some point it is going to fall. So
Yeah.
So comes
And I think if you're building for the short term, that makes incredible sense. That's fine. There's actually a lot of business ideas that could be made that will make a lot of money just in, a year or two, and then it goes away. And that's fine. If that's your goal, I think that's fine.
Yeah. And I think with GPT, a lot of such tools just came into picture as well. I mean, the same thing can be done there, but it is just easing out the user experience by like using that tool, which again, I think will fade out with time. It's just a very, very short-lived product. So on that note, we're almost towards the end. I mean, what advice would you like to give to someone who is just starting off, maybe just bouncing ideas here and there towards the end of the day, or like just, I don't know, hammering their head over the wall and just trying to figure out whether they want to build, they should be building and things like that?
Yeah. I have 4 words for that person. I would say just sell your product first. Sell it first, right? If you can talk to people and you can sell them on your idea and they really like it and they say, yeah, I would use that immediately, right? That should be your cause to go forward and do that, right? Don't just talk to your mom. That's cool. She's going to tell you she loves it. Go talk to people that you think would be the right fit for your product. Don't even write a line of code. Don't even design anything. Just sell the idea. And I think a lot of people, when they get into this, maybe as a solo technical founder, at some point you're going to realize, hey, I got to figure out how to market this thing. I don't know how to do it. And if you would have taken the time to really focus on that initially and say, hey, if I can come up with a product that people actually would want to buy, then you creating that product becomes much easier and gives you the purpose to go and do that. So I think that if you sell your product first, that's going to set you up for success.
True. I think while you were talking about it, you referred to mom, and I guess the book Mom Strategy, was it, or something like that? It covers beautifully how you should be taking the user interviews and not asking your mom about the idea. So any other that you think will like make sense in this scenario and that you suggest to the users?
Yeah, I think that once you've gotten out of that stage, I'm really hyper focused on the initial part of building a product. You have to build the smallest possible thing that achieves what you were trying to sell, right? In my case, it was putting a URL into an input and hitting enter, and it does the rest. That was the smallest possible thing I could build. I didn't want to build this payment integration. I didn't want to build this advanced settings. I didn't want to build out all these other things that I don't know if people would want or need, right? So, we just sit here and we kind of think too much and we do too much, when we're building our product. And that's cool. I think that's what gets us here. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, right? Where it's like, okay, if I'm going to build it and I'm going to think of all these things, I'm going to just keep adding and adding, adding. I've been working on a product that's been going for 9 years, and I've only been a part of it for 2. And in these 2 years, we've actually rewrote the entire core application and launched it. Whereas the 9 years prior, they were just sitting, add this feature, add this feature, add this feature. And they had too much money and not the desire to actually launch it and give it out to people. And so when they started thinking about things in this way, they were like, okay, sell it first, develop an MVP, and design what that's supposed to look like. Do all of that before you write a single line of code. Before you write any code or do anything, especially if you're a technical founder like me, do the design, do the marketing up front, be really confident in that. Writing the code after that becomes super fast and you're going to enjoy every second of it. And when you actually launch it, you're going to already have people that you can send it to that want to try it. And I think that's the best pathway that you can follow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of issues that technical co-founders, I think, have generally is more like, you tried the marketing and user feedback loop and everything yourself. I think it also comes from the agency experience of we have to talk to clients so much, we have to keep interacting and things like that. So we are out there already, right? But technical co-founders, they're more hesitant whether there's a product market fit at all, whether we'll be able to launch, whether we'll be able to get the TAM and things like that. So if someone, specifically a technical co-founder, could actually go through that journey, I think it also adds to a lot of confidence. And then, of course, they know their technical things to do. They can get their shit done there. So yeah, that makes incredible sense. Thank you so much. I think that's all I have. That's all I can think of. Anything other than that, if you would like to add before we end this session and keep continuing on this journey of this Shut the Fuck Up podcast?
Yeah. I think the next part in my journey is figuring out, okay, the marketing, right? And going forward with that. So that's where I'm at. And I think, I've been doing programming for 16 years at this point, and I wish that I had started and learned and hired consultants around marketing before I did all this. And I feel like if you're seriously considering getting into this, marketing and learning how to do that, or talking with people like Priyanka on marketing, that's really, really helpful. And getting a good understanding of how that works and how to do it effectively, that's one of the first steps that I would take. I should have taken. And now I'm paying for it by learning on it on the back half, where I have this product, but now I have to learn how to market it, right? So I would say start early, sell early, prototype fast. That's what I would leave people with.
Yeah, I think a lot of power comes from the community aspect of things, where we met and where we are also trying to build one of ourselves, where we can connect with people and things like that. Because someone has already lived that journey for their product, and they can eventually help you, and you can help them in some sense or the other. So yeah, it's more of just giving back time and again.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Thanks for tuning in to our inaugural episode of Shut Up and Take My Money. We're passionate about SaaS and the incredible individuals shaping this dynamic industry. With our ears wide open, we're ready to dive into all the stories that make SaaS so captivating. Let's connect and ignite some engaging conversations.